Well, welcome to this week's Awesome Marriage Podcast. I'm so glad to have you guys here, and I'm so excited to have Toni Collier join us today. Toni is a speaker. She's the host of the Still Coloring podcast. She's the founder of a women's organization of the same name. She's author of Brave Enough to Be Broken, and her new children's book, Broken Crayons Still Color, is out now. I got to know Toni and follow her as she began to do some new verse of the days. I just think she is awesome, and I am so excited for you guys to get to know her, to spend time with her, and this is going to be an amazing podcast as we talk about brokenness. Hey, Toni, thank you so much for being on Awesome Marriage Podcast. I'm excited to have you. I've watched you and followed you, and I'm so glad to meet you and have you here to share with us today.
I know. I'm so excited. The topic's great. The show's great. And I'm just really honored to be on it. It's going to be a good combo. I'm excited.
It is so much fun, though. Let's jump right into this whole brokenness idea, because two of your books deal with that idea of brokenness. And so how do you find that? How do you find broken? Where do we start?
Man, you know, it's interesting because I feel like I grew up not wanting that title. I was like, no, I'm not broken. You know, it came as this like demeaning word that described people that were flawed and weak, et cetera, et cetera. And the more and more I actually chased after Jesus and realized that there was power and strength in my brokenness, I kind of embraced this term a little bit more. And what it really is in layman's terms is just, it's about our imperfection. Our brokenness isn't about how God's created us. It's about what God created and then man destroyed. We are imperfect. We're wired for struggle. We have temptations. We are not Jesus. We have not come into full, completion of our sanctification and our righteousness. And so we are broken. We're imperfect. We do things wrong. And until we get replanted back into Eden, we're going to be that way. And I think the closer we get to accepting that, the closer we get to healing that. Right. And so
absolutely.
That's kind of how I'm looking at broken these days.
What do you, because you mentioned you didn't want to be labeled that way. What keeps us from identifying with that? Because we're all there, and Jesus tells us we're there,
Yeah. I think it's a few things. I think that one, society tells us that we have to be perfect to be used. Like you've got to be the fastest. You've got to be the smallest. You've got to be the smartest. You've got to have the best aesthetic on your Instagram to get followers and comments and likes. And so because the world craves perfection and most of us are just longing for belonging and connection and witness, then we chase after that too. We're like, okay, I got to live up to that. And that's where we get the people pleasing and the insecurity, and then pride bubbles up in some ways. And really what's happening is that we're trying to please the world more than we're trying to connect with God. And so the more we please the world, the more I think we'll believe that we have to be perfect to be used, when all throughout the Bible, God is using the most broken, the most vulnerable to do his great works. So it's upside down.
And I think that the enemy would love for us to keep jumping through those hoops over and over and over.
Oh, yeah. I mean, here's the deal. The enemy's not focused necessarily on destroying us for destruction's sake. He wants to destroy us to keep us from the witness of God. And because our God cannot, he's literally not able to coexist with sin. He can't get close to us with it on us. And if the enemy can distract us by making idols out of humanity seem more shiny than true, like redemption, he will, because it destroys our connection with God,
Absolutely. And and that's where he wants us to keep. I read a quote, and I cannot remember who it was yesterday, but she said something like, I want every morning when my feet hit the floor, when I get out of bed, for the enemy to go, uh-oh, here she comes again. And I thought that is so good. That is that. And if we're in tune with the Lord, that's going to happen too. Absolutely. I love that.
That's so good. That's so good.
So you've written about brokenness a couple of times. Why is it something you really wanted to write about? What was the background?
I think so. In my journey, I've got so much in my past, from sexual trauma to drug addiction to divorce, et cetera, et cetera. And I remember getting to a point in my life at about 24 where I said, well, I guess that's it for the whole Jesus thing. Like, I have just been through too much. I've done too much. Pain has just like overtaken all of my hope. I am hopeless at this point. And what's crazy is that in that moment when I was like, well, I'm just completely broken and I'm imperfect and God's not going to use me, is when God showed up the most. I think he was waiting on me to be like, I can't do this without you, God, because he's not a
Yeah.
forceful God, right? Like he's not wedging his way into controlling our lives. It's not
Right.
within his character. Instead, he's kind of like the player on the sidelines of our life saying, put me in, coach. Like I've got some
Yeah.
power for your weakness. I've got, some strength for your brokenness. And when I realized that and my whole life radically changed, when you experience hope and redemption, you don't want to stay quiet about it. Like there's just no, like when you actually experience the hand of
Right.
God in your life, you're like, everyone needs this. It's like the new drink at Starbucks. I'm like, I'm telling everybody, pumpkin spice latte with cold foam on top, like, and that was me. I'm like, I got to tell them. There's a whole world out there that's thinking that their brokenness discounts them when actually, as Paul said, the apostle Paul said in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9, that actually when we surrender our weakness, when we give it over to God, it is when his power is actually activated. It was like a little secret that I just wanted everyone to know. And so I wrote this book, Brave Enough to Be Broken, on, how to press into pain, because that's what it required for me, surrendering, pressing into pain, and how to actually like get healing and hope from that. And then I'm doing the same thing for kids now with a kid's book called Broken Crayon Still Color, because I'm kind of like, it would be great if we can catch the kids a little early. Okay. Like if we just tell them now, right, that their brokenness doesn't discount them, I think they'd be set up pretty well,
Oh yeah.
So that's my passion.
No, and I think what you went through, I think we all believe that lie so much that we are too broken, that we've experienced this. And then all through the Bible, we see broken people. And I don't know why sometimes we don't identify as much for that. Because, if you really look at, you wouldn't probably hire a lot of people that God used in the beginning, you're like, no, I don't want him or her,
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny too, because even after he hired them, they still do crazy stuff, right? Like we even see it in the Old Testament, like with Jonah, who's like, I'm not going to tell them people. I'm sorry. Like I'm not immediately no. Like I love you, Lord, but it's just going to take a real crazy thing to get me to go tell these other people about you. And he's like, well, you're going to get swallowed by a whale. And it's like, still not enough, right? Like they keep on making mistakes because the misconception is, well, they're followers of Jesus. They're, representatives of God. Like they have to be perfect. No, don't get it twisted. Like it is the reason why we place pastors on pedestals they shouldn't have been on in the first place, because we think that somehow when we say yes to Jesus, it's just like so great. We're like little Teletubbies in Care Bear land. And it's like, no, we're not. We're still imperfect and we're broken and we're doing the best that we can, So
yeah, absolutely. So let's move into the kids' book a little bit. Because when I first heard that Broken Crayon Still Color, it just was such a visual picture. Tell kind of what moved you to write that. You've said a little bit about that and what you hope it will do for kids.
Sure. I don't talk about this a lot publicly, and I talk about it with discretion, but my daughter has had just tons of different challenges in school with behavior and other things. And I mean, obviously, she walked through a divorce with me. She had to rebuild her life with me as I was rebuilding ours. Like it was just a really hard journey for her. And so school's been hard and social life has been hard for her. And we've done all the things, and I remember walking through that journey with kind of now this secret, right? This secret that our brokenness doesn't discount us. And it was kind of like my leg up in parenting and helping my daughter process through some of her challenges. And we used to do all sorts of things, behavior charts and like exercises, like smell the flowers and blow the candles to help with breathing, like little things. And it dawned on me after I released my first book for adults that it may be good for us to start a little younger so that, kids can have this foundation of knowing that their big feelings and the things that they go through and their anger and their sadness is not something that God's afraid of. It's actually something he deeply wants to hold with them, and he wants them to even surrender it to him. But not only that, if you're, the weird kid in class, or the kid that has untraditional learning, or the kid that's got a diagnosis, like God still loves you the same, and he's so with you. And so this kid's book is all about that. It's letting kids know that even in the midst of their brokenness, like a crayon, they can still create something so deeply beautiful with God.
Oh, that's so good, because I
Yeah.
think so many kids won't. Actually, I was talking to someone yesterday, and they were just talking about how a couple of kids that they know that they're not allowed to show their feelings at home. And
Mm,
so they have to stuff all this in. And
yeah,
probably because the parents have never realized, figured out how to process the feelings
for
themselves. And so they
themselves.
don't know what to do with the kids.
Yes.
And then peers can be mean with the
Yeah.
kids when you're growing up. So
Yeah.
I think that's so important
Yeah.
for kids to see that
Yeah.
at least to have that to hang on to no matter
Yeah.
what situation they're going through right now, and to know that God
Absolutely.
loves them and cares for them and
Yeah.
has a plan for them, because I think some of
Mhm.
them just feel so lost.
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, we've seen suicide rates go up, and
Yeah.
we've just, these poor children are growing up in a world that wants to shape them, and it's leading to destruction and not freedom and beauty. And I'm just really excited because even the people that have gotten the book so far, like for their kids, they're just like, oh my gosh, like I'm so glad to have language to speak over my children
Hmm.
because they are going back to school. And the little girl in the book, Avery, she's going to school. She's nervous. She's got all these big feelings and she's breaking things. And it's just really difficult. And there's just these sentences in the book that just bring so much life and redemption to her. And I'm just really prayerful that as parents read this kid's book to their children, maybe even something on the inside of their parents would start to heal, right? Like we're reading
Absolutely.
these books to our littles and we're like, oh gosh, I needed to hear that for myself as
Yeah.
we reparent ourselves, you know? So it's beautiful.
Yeah, that really is, because I think so many kids feel like they've got to fit into a certain mold, and even the ones that don't have big things wrong, but they're just a little different. Maybe they'd rather read at recess than go
Yeah.
kick the ball or things
Yeah.
like that. And they think, well, if I'm going to be liked, I've got to fit into this mold, and to be
That's
able to celebrate their differences. And I know that's hard as kids. I know it's hard growing up.
yeah.
I know it's hard for me. I got one
Oh,
granddaughter in middle school right now,
yeah.
and it is hard. It
For
is so
sure.
hard,
For sure.
to go through those things, and
Yeah.
to face that every day. So
Yeah.
yeah. So what would you say to a child that
Mm.
just talked to you and said, "Hey, I just don't feel like I'm loved or accepted,
Mm.
and I just don't feel like I fit in anywhere."
Yeah. It's so interesting because my daughter, I remember her coming home from school one day and we were in the process of trying to figure out if we were going to keep her in school or maybe do like a cyber or virtual program that would just be more safe for her. And I remember her coming home and we're just processing through a really hard moment of her day.
Mm,
And she just said, I just wish I was like the other kids.
mm.
Mom, I just wish that I didn't, have these things that I had to battle with. And I want to be like everyone else. And it was almost like I was sitting down with little Toni
Mm,
when she was 8 years
mhm.
old. And it was like this moment where I was like, I know this feeling. And I think for those listening and watching this, I think we've all felt that way. Like, if I could just be faster, if I could just be
Yeah.
stronger, if I could just not have this thorn in my side, if I could just, like, I just want to be like everyone else. And I looked my daughter in the eye, and I would look any kid in the eye right now. And I said, gosh, I would be so sad if you were just like everyone else,
I love it.
because I love and like you. And we're not going to dismiss the way that you feel right now. I
Sure.
understand how it feels to want to belong, to want to be the
Yeah.
same and not different, because it feels like our difference discounts us. Like, I know how that feels. And I want to invite you to maybe think about feeling some other things like gratitude. I
Mm,
love the way my daughter, she's like a little artist. She loves to color so much. And I just told her, I said, one of the things that's so unique about you is that you're a great artist. And I love that about you. And I hope that never changes. Isn't that
mhm.
something that we can be super grateful for, that God made you an incredible artist? Oh my goodness. I
Yeah.
love the Dylan that God made. And that's what I just want to tell everyone, because
Yeah.
it's true about all of us, truly.
Yeah, and I think we get, and as kids especially, you get such a narrow focus. And for
Yeah.
you to help them see, like when you
Yeah.
talk to her about how you love her art, so you can see
Mhm.
a bigger picture because she may not get affirmed for that right now.
No, no.
Maybe later, but not right now, probably at school by you, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh
But
my
this,
gosh.
for her to know that God does have given me gifts that he can use,
Yeah.
that's really good.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, we talked about the kids with the big feelings.
Yeah.
Um, how, how does this help them deal with that?
Yeah.
And I think you've kind of hit at it, but it does make a difference.
Yeah.
Why does that make such a difference for them?
Yeah, so I'm really excited because the kids book is written in a way that talks about feelings from the perspective of these little box of crayons, and so each crayon has a color, obviously, and then also like a name and a feeling, and they start to press into anger and sadness and anxiousness. There's even a crayon in the book that has a little stutter, and they're just so anxious, and then they teach Avery, the little girl in the book, how to process big emotions. So one of the things that we did with Dylan growing up is that we had flowers and candles in every room, right? And so when she
Hmm.
had a really big moment with her feelings, we would grab some flowers and we'd grab a candle and we'd light it and we'd have her smell the flowers, which is just deep breaths, breathing in through the nose and then blowing the candles out and releasing those big feelings. And I can't even tell you how many candles I had to light and blow out and light and blow out and light and blow out. And that's just one of the different strategies that are in the book. But also in the book is a feelings wheel. And so it's color coded by the feelings. So that when your little is feeling overwhelmed, instead of naming the feeling because they may not be there yet, they can name the color that they are feeling.
Oh, that's
And
so
we did
good.
that with our daughter Dylan. She, at school, we had such an incredible team where they had little color cards on her desk. And so when she was feeling a little yellow or orange or red was like, hey, we need to transition out of class, she would be able to point to that color when she didn't have the words to speak. And so that's what the book is. And that's how it's walking littles through how to process some of these really big emotions.
I think it's so good. And I think it helps them learn how to deal with the real emotion because I think a lot of it's just, okay, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm mad.
Right.
And there's so much that goes past
So much
that.
underneath it.
And we tend to jump on anger because we
Yeah.
feel safer there so much. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, if I'm angry at somebody, then I can push them off some.
Yep. I can
But
ignore it. I can yell and scream. I can do all the things versus really feel what it is that's triggering that anger. That's so good.
yeah, I love that chart because I think that really helps the kids get into what that feeling really is. And then they can deal with it.
Yeah.
Then they can have somebody talk them through that or pray
Yeah.
about it or have
Yeah.
a mom. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so good.
Yeah.
So what about brokenness affecting our relationship with God and
Mm.
then other people?
You know, I I think it is the way that we hold brokenness that impacts our relationship with God. Again, when we hold our brokenness in our silos and we don't name it, then it becomes really big. Like, I think that the common misconception is that we can hide it all and we can numb it and it's fine. We are human and we will leak. It will come out in some way, somehow, whether it is
Yeah.
through excessive shopping, whether it is
Yeah.
through drugs and alcohol and addiction. Like, I mean, it's just going to seep out of us in some way. And so the question is, can we take our brokenness, the things that uniquely shape us and char us and crack us, and surrender it in some ways? And the first place I think we should surrender is at, a pit stop at the feet of Jesus. But then
Yeah.
also, I'm in a confessional community led by Dr. Kurt Thompson, and it's just a group of 7 of us. And we're walking together and we're being, like my friend Ann says, Jesus with skin on to each other, bringing
Mm.
our brokenness in the room and seeing that no matter how bad it is, deep the crack is, shattered the experience is, the relationship is, they're not leaving the room. And so if we can begin to embrace pain, which is the subtitle of my first book that I bet people were like, I don't know if I want to pick that up. But
Yeah, right.
if we choose to embrace pain and we invite Jesus into that, and then we invite our, friends into that, that's following Jesus right alongside us, I think brokenness actually could be the antidote to a life of healing, holiness, and wholeness. When we don't embrace brokenness, however, it leads to the place that we've all seen, pastors falling, leaders crushing their entire
Right.
families and organizations. We've seen it and we're all so shocked. We're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she was doing that. I can't believe he was doing that. Well, of course you can't believe it because you didn't know about it because they were hiding it.
Yeah.
and they leaked out. And so our brokenness can be detrimental to us, or it can quite literally be the antidote to a life of freedom.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I think it is. I think people hide it really well a lot of times. And you're right. It's going to come out some way.
Yeah.
If we don't take the time to really look at it, to deal with it, to talk to somebody about it. I love the group that you're in and how you can support each other through that. And that's, I think women do the honest. Do you have any men in your group? Is it all women?
It's all women. And then we're led by Dr. Kurt Thompson, who's a man. And we're always like, we're so sorry, Betty. So sorry.
But I think women do it better than we do as guys. I think women are, it seems like it's easier for women to come together and guys will come together to watch a ball game or whatever.
Yeah.
But when I can get guys to get together, even if it's just an accountability, the difference it makes by having someone that you can be transparent with, that you can, hey, I'm struggling with this. It makes such a difference. And this, I think I've seen a lot of guys there, it is their first step to identifying and begin to heal that brokenness. And I think when you're saying that, I mean, every successful 12-step group I know starts with admitting you have a problem.
Yep.
And it's
action.
And we have to start there. We can't, I don't think you can do, if you're talking about 12 steps, you can't do steps 2 through 12 if you haven't done step 1.
Absolutely.
And obviously having God involved in the middle of it, because he does want us to get well. And I think sometimes we don't grasp that real well. We don't realize how much that he wants us to heal.
Yeah. And I think what's unfortunate is how twisted our view of God has been stewarded. I mean, we have seen churches that built a sanctuary for just, believers. We're going to keep all those other heathens out there. This is just a church for the saints, right? And so the picture that's painted is this very thwarted view of God that we somehow have to get all cleaned up for him to tap in, right? So like he's the God that's at the end of the tunnel. And as soon as we get everything all perfect and all good to go, then he'll be there. But that's not at all who he is. He's actually quite the opposite. He's the one that lights up every single step that we take. In order to do that, you have to be with someone, walking step in step, just a few, inches ahead of them, not all the way at the end of this tunnel saying, I'll be over here when you're ready, And so I think if we do a better job, and I think the church has done a better job of, presenting the actual gospel and presenting the actual character of God, I think more people will be like, maybe this isn't like this exclusive country club type situation. Actually, God's been waiting for me all along, whether I have it cleaned up or not. And it is by his glory and divinity that he will start to refine me through the process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I've told people this before in counseling that if they're in a church where they feel they got to be perfect to walk in the doors, you need to find a different church because you gotta go. Yeah. The church is, and I think that's where sometimes people see us as hypocrites. Well, you go to church and you still do that. I go, yeah, I'm still a sinner, I'm saved. But I still, I'm still going to screw up. And I want to be in God's presence. And I want to be in the presence of other believers.
Yeah.
And so, if you're not in a church where you feel you can be who you are, then find a church where you can.
That's good. That's so good.
I just need it.
No, I know.
What about marriage?
Man, it's been interesting because I'm on my second marriage. Praise the Lord. God has redeemed that area of my life. But I brought a lot of baggage into the marriage, right? Like, oh my gosh, abuse, drug addiction, restarting my life, single mom. Oh my gosh, all the things. And I am, start dating this guy who's like in the church and he's pastoring and he's traveling and speaking. And I'm looking at him like, oh my gosh, like he is not going to want me. And so there's that insecurity talking, right? There's that idea that I'm not worthy of this. And we rushed into it in a way that didn't allow for my own healing. And one of the things that I think we've learned, thankfully, we hopped right into counseling right after we got married because we were like, whoa, should have did that before. That was crazy. But we've unfortunately been working on the defense for years and years and years. And 5 years in, we've been married for 8 years now, but 5 years in, we finally got to a point where it was like, whoo, I think we both have done the majority of the healing that we need to do. Healing is a lifelong process, so we're going to keep going, but at least we're stable. And I think people bring baggage into marriages that they really shouldn't have to. The truth is, we're talking about two whole individuals coming to create something holy. And my encouragement always, and the encouragement that I even think my husband would give if he was sitting here, is if you can commit to your own personal healing, wholeness, and holiness, that will be reflected in your marriage. We want a marriage that's whole, that is healing, and that is holy. But we don't get that unless we embrace our own brokenness. We process through all the things that we carry into this union, and we do it well. And so people laugh at us all the time because we have 3 counselors. I have a counselor. My husband has a counselor. We have a marriage counselor together. People laugh at us all the time because we're actually we're doing a program called Prepare and Enrich, which I'm sure that you are familiar with, but we're doing the enrich part where we're just taking a look at our marriage and like, what's going on? Are we okay? Yeah. Everything is good. We are not absent-minded of the brokenness that we bring into this situation. Some of it because of our marriage and a lot of it because of our pasts.
Sure.
And so marriages work, baby. I mean, I don't know who lied to the people that said this was just a little walk in the park, but it is just work, and it's continual work. It is just like our sanctification. We need guardrails. We need different things in different seasons. We just had a baby, our first baby together, but we have a blended family. So we've got all these idiosyncrasies in our marriage and our family dynamic.
Yeah.
So it's just constant work, but it's good, holy work.
Yeah, it is. And you grow together. And I love the things that you're saying. There's nobody that can change me but letting God do it. And so I can't change my spouse. And so
how many times have we tried to do that?
Oh my gosh. I just tried to put Nancy in this box for so long and she just wouldn't stay in there. And then I finally realized
do it this way.
Yeah, exactly. But then when you finally realize, no, God gave you this person because they are different. In fact, I think it'd be boring if we married someone just alike. Yeah. But I think that's a good point to think of. We do bring baggage into marriage. And if we've had a previous marriage or the longer we're single and think we got married young. And so we still had baggage. We had family of origin baggage. Yeah. We didn't have as much relationship baggage. But you always have things to work through. And I think you're right. Every season brings new challenges, but also new joys. That God, what's God got to do in this season? Yeah. And you've got to, I think I thought early, Toni, that we'd have that first year to a marriage, we'd figure it all out, and then we'd just coast for 50 years. I thought, that's it.
We've already done the work. We did the little premarital thing. Let's keep it moving here. No. Then you have a baby, and it's like, I don't like the way you changed that diaper. Why aren't you up? I'm sleep deprived. What's going on? Parenting is different than what I thought it was going to be with you. Let's talk about it. So many things.
And then you have that second kid and you go, oh my gosh.
And don't let you have the third. Then you're outnumbered and you don't know what to do.
That's right. You go from man to zone defense. I mean, it's, it's just
so good.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah. I think, so in marriage, really just, acknowledging our brokenness and being willing to let God come in and work on it. And then the other spouse just walking beside them, not trying to fix them, but just being there.
Witness.
Yeah.
Just being a person.
I love that word. I love that word. Yeah. I'm going to start using that. I like that a lot.
Use that word. Use it.
Yeah. Because it's really what it is, Yes. What about past hurt and trauma? You alluded to some things you went through. And everybody, probably a high percentage of those that are listening and watching us with this had some trauma in their past. So what's the first step?
Well, my first step was I even hate to say this because it's interesting that I look back on it now. When I say it, it's very hard for people to understand if you're still in the pain. But it is very difficult to heal in the place and with the people that broke you in the first place. Yeah. And one of the first things that I had to do was to get out of the environment that was causing so much pain and hurt and trauma. And that's hard because when you're married and you're in an abusive marriage, you're like, I want my marriage to work and I want this to be healthy and safe. And you have all these longings and we run from the grief of leaving even the painful situations. Sometimes it feels easier to choose agony over loneliness. But the truth is, there's a reason why, in my personal opinion, God planted Adam and Eve in a place. The place itself was designed to carry them, care for them, be a holy place of renewal for them. Places and spaces matter to God. There's a reason why God, chose the hill that overlooked the Sea of Galilee when he gave the Sermon on the Mount. It was something about that space. There's a reason why he retreated to Gethsemane by himself. There's reason for places and spaces. And I just think that God's intent is for any place or space that we dwell in with the people we dwell in it with should be safe and holy and good. And so the first step, I think, is getting into a space that makes you feel safe and holy and good. And sometimes that's transitioning people out, which is hard, to a different place in your life, creating boundaries, hard, leaving a place that you love, so hard. But I just think that if that could be our first step, if the first pursuit could be, let me get into a safe place, I just think we would feel more open and free to even start the healing journey.
Because I think it's hard. It's just, I don't know, I wouldn't use the word impossible. It is so hard to do it if you're not.
So I try. I used to say impossible and people were like, what? Yeah. And I was like, okay, it's very difficult.
It's very difficult because you've got something fighting you all the time.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when you're in an unhealthy relationship like that and you're married to someone that's very unhealthy and abusive and those things, they don't want you to get healthy. So you're trying to get well, and then you got the person that you're in bed with at night and walking with during the day that doesn't want you to get well. And so it is hard. And I never recommend divorce. I think that's that's got to be somebody's decision. But to get safe is okay. Yeah. And to get yourself separated for a while so you can think through and get yourself healthy, that's okay. Yeah. It's okay. You don't have to be in an abusive relationship. So absolutely. I'm going to ask you a personal question. I have to answer. Sure. What made you get out the first minute? What got you to that point?
It wasn't the what, it was the who. I remember driving to church, going to Easter service with my daughter's dad. And he just was yelling and cursing and banging against the wheel. And I remember looking in the rearview mirror at my daughter and she wasn't crying. She was just in shock. And so I call it the day that I saw fear in my daughter's eyes for the first time. And the truth is, I wasn't secure or worthy enough to leave. I thought because my dad was really verbally abusive, this is just how people talk, like men talk to women. This is kind of the marriage. It's okay. I was unfazed by a door being ripped off the hinges and holes punched in the walls. And it was like, I was so used to trauma, but there was something in me that recognized that I did not want my daughter to live and grow up in that, because then she would be numb to pain and trauma and abuse like I was. And so it was the who, my daughter Dylan, that, and again, I mean, after almost a decade of counseling, working through things, bringing other people in, even changing churches, believing, okay, if we went to a different church, then we can go to their marital program. And I mean, so many things, prayers and fasting. And safety and healing wasn't important to me for me. It was important to me for my daughter. She was the reason why I left.
Makes sense. I've had other women tell me the exact same thing.
It's sad and hard that you have a child in a situation like that, but truly sometimes the child is the hero. Truly.
Yeah. Well, and you don't want that. You don't want her to think that's normal.
No.
And you don't want her to marry someone like her dad and think it's okay. Okay, it's what mom endured. So yeah.
It's just normal.
And I think God doesn't want us in situations like that.
Yeah.
And it's okay to protect ourselves and to it's hard. I'm sure it wasn't easy. And another thing I see with women, I think too a lot, Toni, is that you said 10 years. I think women give and give and give. And finally you do look at your child or something, you think, I can't do this anymore. I see what it's doing to her. Yeah. And that's okay when you get there. Yeah. It wasn't like God closed his door on you, right?
Oh my gosh. That was the biggest revelation. I grew up Catholic. I was like, well, going to hell. Absolutely. It's over. I mean, it was just, I got a divorce. I chose it. It's on me. Like, there it is. Like, my daughter's safe, but my eternity is not. My eternity is not safe anymore, and to learn that there was a God that said, do you not think that I'm strong enough, that if I'm strong enough to raise Jesus from the dead, I'm not capable of forgiveness and redemption in your life? Oh my goodness. It was like, okay. He's the God of witness, no matter what.
It's so powerful.
Yeah.
So powerful. So you're in a new marriage.
Yeah.
Well, I think our pastor's going through the book of Ruth right now, and we're in the second chapter, and Ruth and Boaz has come on the scene. How did do you have a Boaz, and how did you get him there? How did God get you there?
Oh my gosh. It was so weird. And, I want to say something about, I've read Ruth in the past couple of months because I've been going through the Bible in a year for this year. And it was interesting when I read it because I was like, oh, my husband Sam was so that to me. But I think women can mistake their Boaz as their savior. And that's what I did. I met Sam. I was doing this presentation at a church. I was kind of consulting, trying to get back up on my feet after divorce. And I was just helping people brainstorm ideas. And so I'm, presenting this idea for this company. And Sam, my husband's there, and he's like, who is this girl? And someone actually texts him and says, oh no, dude, like she's got like all these issues. She's got a kid. She's, we think she's divorced because it wasn't public at the time. And they're like, oh, I don't know. Like, it's a lot of mess and drama over there. And he was like, okay, well, let me just back off here. And about a month or two went by, and he reached out and he was like, I'd love to take you on a date. And I was just like, no, I am fresh off of divorce and I got a kid and I don't know. And I remember my friend saying, it's just a date, like go on a date. Like it is what it is. So I go on a date. We're there for 6 hours and Sam is just the best man I've ever met. I'm like, who is this guy that's so in tune with his emotions, so kind, loves the Lord, single, he has a house. I'm like, whoa. And from that day on, until we got healing in our marriage, he was my savior. I had quite literally put him on the place or in the place in exchange for Jesus. And he is not wired to bear that. No. And that caused so much tension and pain in our marriage and even in our friendship, because we have such a good friendship. We're like crazy together. We chase each other around the house. We're like, we laugh, we tell inside jokes. Like we have a friendship, but it really damaged us because here I am again, like the same thing I did at my first church, but the pastor in place is the savior. I did with Sam, and it crushed him in ways that I'm sure he's still healing from in his own personal counseling sessions. And that was just hard. And I just think we just can't put our Boaz in the place of our savior. That's because so they're not made for that.
No, and it puts so much, it's unrealistic when you think about it. And I
Yeah.
get it.
Oh,
Sam's, I mean, he is, God brought him in your life, but it
yeah.
wasn't to be your God, it was to be your husband.
He was like, okay, you could took this gift a little too seriously here, sweet girl. Oh, I know. I
Yeah.
know.
Well,
Yeah.
and plus none of us are perfect as
Yeah.
guys. We're still gonna make that mistake at
Same.
times. We try to
Same.
learn from them, and that's
Yeah.
what I tell people. Okay, so you did that, learn from it, and then God
Yeah.
redeems it, and you don't have
Hmm.
to wallow in that.
Yeah,
And
that's good.
but we're gonna make those mistakes.
Yeah.
We're
And
gonna.
isn't it better to know that on the front end, like to already accept that marriage is going to be hard, that we are imperfect. It's our rose colored filters or our, rosy filters that we come into church with and we come into marriage with that really sets us up for unmet expectations. And there's nothing wrong with having boundaries and with having, things that you prefer. But when we come into situations with expectations that we didn't discuss with anybody, and it's just this
Mm,
internal narrative, gosh, 9 times out of 10, we leave, we crush it, we ruin it because our expectations weren't met, even if we didn't voice them,
absolutely.
even if
And
they're just stories that we're telling ourselves.
sure. And sometimes those expectations we don't tell, then we get mad for somebody
We're
not
still
fulfilling
mad.
that. We never even told them
Yeah.
about it.
We
Yeah.
have this phrase in our marriage that we learned in one of our marriage intensives, and it's just the story that I'm telling myself is. And it's beautiful because it doesn't discount what you're feeling, but it
Mm,
also doesn't place blame on someone who has no idea what you're saying inside. And I
mm.
remember many times telling Sam, like, the story that I'm telling myself is the reason why you're not taking out the trash is because you don't care for our family. because because you would rather that I do it, because all of these stories.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
when you bring that open-handed to your spouse and they say, oh no, I love our family. I want to care well for our family. I'm really having some difficulty remembering. Is there any way that we can put like a calendar invite together, like for a notification to take out the trash? Oh my gosh. How many
Yeah.
arguments will you save telling what you feel without placing the blame yet? We call it the yellow. So it's the caution state. I go to the
That's
red very fast. I'm like, you don't want to do anything. He's like, whoa, you're at red,
yep.
sweet girl. You have jumped from green to red. But just like when we drive vehicles, the safest option is for us to slow down first before we stop, full stop, before
That's
we're
so
at
good.
red, you know? And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I try to go to yellow. My sweet husband goes to yellow all the time. He's like, hey, when you did that, what did you mean by that? Me, I'm like, when you did that, I knew what you meant. So feisty, so
Because
much to ask.
you can read his mind, you know that, right?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what's going on up there. So yeah.
But I love the red, yellow, green. I
Yeah,
mean, I think we need visuals like
counseling.
that and think, oh my gosh, I am jumping in the red. It's getting
I'm
pretty
jumping in the
pink right
red.
now. Yeah, I need to go back.
We
I need
love
to,
colors in our family, as you can tell.
well,
Okay. All
yeah.
colors.
But it's something we can identify with.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what yellow, I mean,
Yeah.
red, yellow,
It
and
doesn't
green
just go
are.
from green to red. That would be crazy. How many wrecks? How many wrecks would there be? How much
Ex-
destruction would there be?
exactly. Exactly. No, we need that yellow.
We
I
need that
like
yellow.
that. I like that a lot. I
That
think too, when you're talking about sometimes with our expectations, one of the things I taught a prep for marriage class for a year. And it was a 9-week course. I taught this church 3 times a
yellow.
year. We had lots of people, but the last scripture I gave them was
Man.
when Jesus said, "In this world you'll have trouble, but I've overcome the world."
Mm.
Because it's easy to go into marriage with rose-colored glasses and think it's all going to be okay, and it's just not.
Yeah.
But if you go into it knowing there's problems and knowing you've got a God that has all the answers,
Mm.
then that's what we have to rely on, not
Yeah.
on
So good.
Boaz or Sam or anybody else.
Yep.
And then Sam can be the best husband that God equips him to
That
be.
God equips him to be. Woo!
Yeah.
That's good.
I like
That's
it. I
good.
like
Listen,
it.
we had a whole this. Wow, this was amazing. I'm like, someone just shaved off some counseling sessions
I
listening to
hope
this right
so.
now.
Well, I hope so. So let's talk a little bit. What about you and Sam today? What are you loving about being married to Sam
Um,
today?
oh, that's so funny. So one of the sayings that we had in our marriage at the beginning was, if we're not having fun, we're doing something wrong. And I love that we're still chasing that intently. Like, we have been through a lot. I mean, it's been 8 years. We've seen deaths in our family. His mother passed away this past year. We've seen like just all sorts of unhealth, and we've seen counseling. We've seen a lot of counseling, a lot. We've seen blended family going from a really hostile situation to like, oh, I think everyone's stable, to, oh my gosh, we're all co-parenting as blended families. We've gone through new marriages, you know, for my first husband, and a new baby, so many things. And all of those things really could have left us pretty stale and like broken and defeated. But instead, we've embraced our brokenness, and we've not let it steal our joy. We still have so much fun. I mean, literally just yesterday, I was driving down the highway, and he was like, dude, I have to call you. I've got this funny story to tell you. And we're just like screaming on the phone. And that's such a gift, I feel. Like,
Absolutely.
It's that we can still just like holler and snort together and have fun after everything that we've been through. It's really,
so
really
good. And I think it's so important to have fun with your spouse. And I think sometimes we lose that. So if anybody's, hope that encouraged them what you just said, because you had fun before you got married. You wouldn't got married.
Yeah.
And so
marry a boring old situation.
No, so bring that back, because I think that's one of the gifts God gives us in marriage, to laugh together is just, it connects us in a very different way than other things do. Yeah, for sure, very much so. Hey, this has been a blast.
So good.
Where can people find you?
Toni Collier on all the things. ToniCollier on Instagram, website, ToniJCollier.com. Everything's there, all the books. I've been posting about the kids' book and all these great partnerships that I've been doing with organizations. It's just been so, so, so sweet. But Toni Collier on everything.
And Broken Crayon Still Color is the name of the kids' book.
Still Color, the kids' book. It's so precious.
The new book is something that people can look forward to, and that's all exciting. So find Toni. You will love her. I love everything that she does, and thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Yay! Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome.
Yeah.